All right, thank you. Thank you so much. And good morning and welcome, everyone. And thank you for joining us for another edition of New England Chapter Connects, where we have a really interesting topic today, technology that Public Works community is considering as part of their operations, taking flight with drones, and really insights on starting a municipal drone program. We have another great group of participants joining us today from all over, near and far. I think we have folks registered from Colorado and Indiana and elsewhere. So welcome, everyone. My name is Rich Benevento. I am the APWA Region 1 Director and the co-chair of the New England Chapter Public Works Awareness Committee. If you've participated in some of our previous sessions, hopefully you found them informative and were able to pick up a few tips. We have a great panel today who will be discussing the benefits of utilizing drones, also some of the regulatory requirements that go with that. So it should be a great topic for today. And we're glad because we have a great panel as well. Just a couple of things before we get started. First, many thanks to our Public Works Awareness and Education Committees. These committees continue to do great work to bring many ideas and promotions and programs, and they're working hard really to promote the value and importance of public works in our communities and in our lives. So thank you to both of those committees. If you're interested in getting involved, both committees would love to have you. Or if you're not an APWA member and you'd like to be, you can reach out to myself or Julie Piancentini or any of the committee members. We'd love to have you. Also, our regular shout out to Regina Hackett and the entire team at the Connecticut T2 Center. Can't say enough about this for their help in producing the program. Regina is really the glue that keeps this group together. And we can't say enough about her. Just the organizing and the communication and the logistics and all that goes into this this program is really great. And we couldn't do it without Regina and the team over at the Connecticut T2. So thank you very much for that. And of course, a shout out to our New England Chapter sponsors. Without our sponsors, we could not bring all of the great programs and events to our members in New England. They are great supporters of the Public Works community. They support the chapter and they support our members. So a big shout out to our chapter sponsors. And we hope that if you are working with them or you're talking to them, that you would also thank them as well. The New England Chapter Connects program was originally created to keep us all connected during the COVID-19 pandemic, excuse me. However, we have found, based on feedback, that the New England Chapter Connect Learning Series is providing a platform to stay informed on important topics of the day facing public works professionals, and also a way for us to all stay connected. By the way, for those of you who have responded to the survey that we sent out requesting information on what you would like to see for future topics, thank you, thank you, thank you. We got some great feedback. And as such, we have some programs that are going to be coming up. Today is really, we will be wrapping up our 2022 New England Chapter Connect season, but we're already have some great topics lined up for 2023. You can see them right there on the screen, March 23rd, April 27th, and May 25th. So make sure you mark your calendars for those. And also remember, our New England Chapter Connect sessions are recorded. So if you or your staff or your crew miss any of these sessions and you'd like to watch them later, perhaps in the lunchroom, there you can find them at the New England Chapter website. That's newengland.apwa.net. They're all right there, going back to 2 years ago even. We have some great programs, including things like winter operations and that. So anyway, so let's get going. Gives me great.
Let's see. Hang on one second. It's Rob Barone from Danbury. I don't know. Can you guys see me okay?
We will.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we will. Let's hang on a second, Rob. We'll be with you in a minute. Let me just finish my intro here. All right.
All right.
It gives me great pleasure to introduce our moderator for today's program, Jeremy Marset. Jeremy is no stranger to the Public Works community. As the former director of Public Works for the town of Natick, Massachusetts. Note I said former. Because he's in a new role. He's just taken on a new role as town administrator for the town of Sherborne. Jeremy is actively involved in our chapter and on the education committee. He is also a member of the Massachusetts Municipal Association Policy Committee on Public Works, Transportation, and Public Utilities, and many, many other service associations and committees. So it's great to have Jeremy as moderating this morning. He's a professional of the highest caliber, now town administrator and our good friend. So please welcome our moderator, Jeremy Marcet. Good morning, Jeremy.
Morning. Thanks, Rich. Thanks for the introduction. It's my pleasure to moderate this morning. I think we've got a great group of panelists here, three folks that bring an array and a various experience with implementing or assisting municipalities in implementing municipal drone programs. I think they all have a lot of perspectives to share and some information to provide to folks that might be interested in starting up a drone program on their own, or are looking to team or partner with other associations to put one together. So we've got three great panelists, starting with Jennifer Yoxel. Jennifer is of the law offices of Jennifer S. Yoxel, PLLC, and has represented municipalities for nearly 30 years. She is the co-founder of the Connecticut Municipal UAV Task Force, a private instrument-rated pilot with over 25 years of flight experience. She's a licensed commercial drone pilot and an FAA safety team representative and drone pro. She's going to give a presentation early on, and then she'll be followed by Rich Ames. Rich is a GIS professional with over 25 years of experience in the municipal and private sectors. In addition to an undergraduate degree in cartography and GIS from Salem State University, Mr. Ames holds a Master's of Arts in GIS and International Development from Clark University. He is the first and current GIS coordinator for the town of Natick, Massachusetts. Rich is also has also established Natick's drone program and is also a certified FAA pilot. He became certified in 2016. And rounding out our panelists is Robert Barone. He's of the Construction Services Division for the city of Danbury, Connecticut. He's a U.S. Air Force veteran, has a Bachelor's of Arts from Columbus University in Business Administration, has been in the construction industry for 30 years, and he currently manages the city of Danbury, Connecticut's right-of-way and construction activities. And he's beginning and has in early stages of developing a drone program. So I think we've got a great group of panelists here that have sort of been in various stages of municipal drone programs. So the order of events will be Jennifer will give a talk, then Rich will give a talk, and Robert will have a video that he'll show of a recent flight he's undertaken and will narrate. And then we'll open it up to questions. Feel free to put your questions in the chat as we go, but we will be sure to leave some time at the end for a nice panelist discussion and question and answer time. So with that, it's my pleasure to turn it over to Jennifer.
All right, thank you so much. I'd like to start by just thanking the APWA and Teaching Program for having me here. It is always truly exciting to talk about aviation with anybody. It's something that I absolutely love. And as you all get involved in aviation, what you'll find is that people who are involved in it love talking about it. So I'm gonna just go ahead and share my screen. Let me just make sure I'm set to do that, to go through these. Okay, can you see this? Does this? Okay, great. So I'd like to thank Jeremy. You gave a great overview of my my background. What I'm just going to go into a little bit further is this co-founder of the Connecticut Municipal UAV Task Force. So together with Don Janelle from Manchester Emergency Management, we formed this task force because what we found is we've got 169 towns in Connecticut, and all those who wanted to start a drone program were just out there on their own. So we started this group so that everybody could collaborate, communicate, and coordinate and learn from each other, so that everybody didn't have to be reinventing the wheel. This group is open to anybody involved in municipal drone programs. It doesn't matter what state you're from. We meet every other month via Zoom, just to go over things that may be of interest to people. And then every other month we have in-person meetings. So obviously, if you're not nearby, those don't work out. But Anybody is welcome to join. We have a website that you can check out. So what I'm going to be talking to you about this morning is really an hour presentation condensed down to about 15 minutes. So I'm going to try not to talk too fast, but there's a fair amount of information I want to give to you. So first, I'm going to talk about how you think about your drone. It is not a toaster, so it's not some shiny thing that you take down from the shelf when you want to have a piece of toast, and then when you're done with it, you put it back up to the shelf and you don't look at it again until the next time you want a piece of toast. There's a lot that goes along with having a drone program, and I'll get into a little bit more about that. It's not a toy. A drone is a piece of equipment, just like any other piece of equipment that you own, but with one really important difference. When somebody takes that drone off, that person becomes a pilot flying an aircraft in the National Airspace System and subject to FAA laws. So that's really important that you understand that. When you are flying a drone, there are a number of liabilities that you're vulnerable to. The biggest liability, which actually comes as a surprise, I think, to some people, is fire. The lithium polymer batteries that power your drones, they can catch on fire pretty easily. So you really need to understand how to use them, how to charge them, how to transport them, how to store them, etc. So this photo here was a brand new 3-bay garage that one of our, we call it CT MUTS, is our group, the Municipal UAV Task Force. Our MUTS member was had 2 different chargers going with the drones, and clearly one of them malfunctioned. It burned the brand new building, totaled the command vehicle, and damaged 2 other vehicles. So this over here is just another photo of a drone that went down. It burned 300 acres before 30 firefighters were able to put it out. So that's really one of the biggest liabilities with drones. Obviously, you also have the potential for personal injury if your drone collides with anybody, and then property damage. The other significant liability that you have with flying drones is collision with low-flying manned aircraft. This is something that I'm going to talk a little bit more about in detail, but you have to be extremely aware of this potential danger and take all measures possible to avoid it. So these are the potential liabilities that you have with flying drones. So now I'm going to just really briefly look at how you can protect yourself from these liabilities, your program, your people, and also the people in your community. So those of you who are maybe Harry Potter fans, you may remember Fluffy. That was the giant 3-headed dog that guarded something valuable. So you have a valuable program, and you have 3 avenues of liability protection. Number 1 is operating a safe program with a culture of safety. That is the most important one. Number 2 is governmental immunity that you have pursuant to the statute. And number 3 is insurance. So we're going to look briefly at each one of those. I'm going to start with the governmental immunity. So typically by statute, you're given immunity for negligence arising out of discretionary action. So that means you don't want to act in a way that looks like it's beyond negligence. And what that means is if it goes to a situation where somebody may say what you've done is willful and wanton. So routinely ignoring the requirements in your program documents, that's going to look like more than negligence. If you forget to do something once, that's one thing. But if you routinely don't do what you're supposed to be doing, that's going to look like negligence. And you may not be covered by that municipal immunity. Also, you're immune for discretionary actions. Most of flying a drone is discretionary. The law doesn't specify how you do it, but sometimes you can turn something that's discretionary into something mandatory. So just as a quick example, the law doesn't say you can't fly your drone if the winds are, let's say, more than 30 miles an hour, but your program documents might. So if they do that, you've just taken away your discretion, which is okay to do. But if you do it, you need to make sure everybody in your program knows they cannot violate those things because there's no discretion anymore. And so you may not have that governmental immunity. So sort of in a nutshell, those are the things to watch out for making sure you continue, that you still have that governmental immunity protection. So because immunity is not always there for you, you need to also be aware of insurance. You definitely want to have insurance. And the way that insurance works, you have 2 options. One is to get a standard aviation policy. So this is the kind of insurance policy I have on my general aviation aircraft. It works very much like an automobile policy. It goes like per drone, just like you have it per automobile. And you can get a liability policy only that covers you for liability. You can also get what's called hull insurance. So that's like collision on your car insurance. And that would cover the cost of your drone and the cost of any payloads. So a standard aviation policy is true coverage. That's why I have a picture of a tank here. This is real coverage. It covers you for just about anything you need. It's not cheap because it is per drone. So if a liability only policy tends to run like $600 to $800 for one drone, it will go down as you add drones to that. But it is true protection. The second way of getting insurance is to work with your commercial general liability carrier to modify or eliminate the very broad standard aviation exclusion that is found in every CGL policy. The problem with this is that CGL carriers are not aviation carriers. So they're going to be more risk averse. So you need to be really careful if you do that to look at any exclusions or conditions that there may be on how they've revised the language to allow you to have that. Just as an example, I've seen policies that don't cover collision with aircraft. So to me, that's like having a health insurance policy that says, we got you covered for a cold, but if you have a heart attack, you're out of luck. Because a policy that doesn't cover you for a collision with manned aviation, in my view, is absolutely not sufficient. So just if you go that CGL route, make sure you understand any exclusions. And so that's why I have this picture to sort of continue with the Harry Potter theme. This is my son's wizard stick that he worked really hard on, and it's a really, really cool wizard stick. But that wizard stick is never doing any magic because it's not real. So you need real protection, and you need to make sure that your insurance is giving that to you. Okay, so now a quick look at your program. There are 3 ways of operating a program, but for you in Public Works, there's really only one. So you can operate under Part 107, where all your pilots get their Part 107 license. That is actually the only option available to you, and I'll explain why. The other option you will hear your public safety, fire, and police people talking about is a COA. So that's a certificate of authorization. The problem with a COA is you need to be a governmental agency, which most of you qualify for, probably all of you actually. But what you don't qualify for is the operations that are covered under COAs need to be governmental functions. And that means something that only a government does. So that would be like police protection, fire protection, things that you can't go out typically and hire somebody else to do. Most of what you all do, you could hire a commercial operator to do it for inspections, things like that. This is what commercial people do. So most of your missions are not COA missions. So I don't think it makes sense for most of you to have a COA. You're going to be operating under Part 107. So in your program, there are requirements for the aviator, the aircraft, and the assignment. In a nutshell, the aviator and the aircraft need to be able to fly legally and safely. Your pilot needs to be certified, their certification needs to be up to date, and they need to be well trained in the aircraft. They need to understand their SOPs. The aircraft needs to be in condition for safe flight. You have to have done pre-flight inspections, post-flight inspections, periodic maintenance. So, and then the assignment, you need to make sure that you can complete that assignment without violating any of the regulations or your SOPs. So quickly, again, how do you know the aviator and the aircraft are fit to fly? And the answer is logbooks. You are going to need logbooks for every pilot, every aircraft, and maintenance and repair logbooks. And if you don't have these logbooks and anything happens and you are involved in any kind of a lawsuit, you will have a very difficult time demonstrating that you have a good program and that you were not at fault. So you're going to need logbooks. There's a lot of information that you are going to need to keep track of to have one of these programs. So I highly recommend you take a look at electronic data management systems. On our website, we did a interview with Air Data UAV. They're a relatively inexpensive, I think it's like $20 a month per drone, program that will allow you to input all the stuff that you need to keep track of. And Another one is Drone Sense, but that's more expensive. But I think it's really important to take a look at those data management systems. And if you look on our website, under meetings, you'll see the hour-long interview with Air Data UAV, where they explain all that they can do for you. Okay, so now as far as the program complying with the requirements, there's a lot of FARs, Federal Aviation Regulations, you need to comply with. Because my time is so limited, I am going to focus on one that is of most importance, and that is visual line of sight. You need to be able to see your drone. You need to know its location. You need to know its attitude, altitude, direction of flight. You have to observe airspace for any other traffic or hazards. You have to be able to determine that your aircraft isn't endangering anybody's life or property. You have to do that through the whole flight, and either by the pilot or a visual observer. Let's take a look at what this means. This means more than you see a dot in the sky. That is not sufficient. What it means is if your screen were suddenly to go blank, which by the way can happen if it gets hot, and you or your visual observer saw an approaching low-flying aircraft, can you see your drone well enough to be able to maneuver it out of the way in time to avoid a collision? That is what line of sight means, okay? Now, I'm going to just take a real quick look here at what happens when your drone, when things hit aircraft. First thing I'm going to talk real briefly about is what happens when soft-bodied birds hit aircraft. Your drone is not soft-bodied, and it doesn't have a self-preservation instinct. It's not trying to avoid an aircraft. So take a look at what happens when something soft that was probably trying to avoid a collision hits. So if you look over here, this was a bird that went through a windshield. And one thing I just wanted to mention, there was in 2009, a red-tailed hawk penetrated the windshield of a Sikorsky S-76, very large helicopter. The NTSB determined that when that went through the windshield, the pilot had 6 seconds to respond. Not surprisingly, he was not able to respond, and 6 people died. So red-tailed hawk weighs 2.5 pounds. These are the weights of your average, drones, 2.6 pounds, 2.68. The DJI Matrice series are over 8 pounds. So if this is what a soft-bodied bird can do to an aircraft, you can imagine what your drone can do. So I will tell you, on Facebook pages, you will see people saying drones can't take down aircraft. That is absolutely incorrect. So it's really, really important that you scan the airspace for aircraft. Right to date, there have been 9 confirmed collisions between drones and helicopters, and 2 that they're pretty certain were collisions between drones and manned aircraft. What they said when they interviewed the drone pilot, they were all screen watching, and they were shocked at how fast the collision happened when they saw the manned aircraft. So stuff can go bad faster than you will expect. So it's just really important to be scanning airspace. These are some collisions with drones and helicopters. This is down on the bottom right. This was a drone that hit a Cessna 172, 500 feet above the ground. It was actually a police drone. This drone was on final approach to land with a pilot and instructor and a student pilot. Had the drone hit 2 or 3 feet higher, they would be dead. So it's just, again, I can't stress enough how important it is that you scan the airspace. And I put my timer on, so I wasn't talking too much. So I'm gonna make this real quick. I only have 2 more slides. So you want to investigate anything that happens that's weird in your program. Like if there are accidents, incidents, strange things that go wrong, you want to know what went wrong and make sure it doesn't happen again. Consult an attorney familiar with aviation law before you report anything to the FAA, NTSB, or NASA. You do have reporting requirements that you will need to understand. Regional coordination. It's really helpful if you and the people around you are using similar SOPs and policies. I think if you are using the same data management programs, that's also helpful. Training together, you must train regularly. If you have a bunch of people training, you can help each other make sure that you're doing this regularly and that it's quantifiable, measurable, good training. So here are just some resources for you. If you look on our CT Mutt's website, I have all of these resources. I highly recommend these Facebook pages, even if you're not a Facebook person. They are filled with very knowledgeable people. If you have questions, you just put them up there and you will get lots of answers. So sorry for making it so fast. I think I've gotten through everything I need to say, and I'm available for any questions then afterwards that you may have. I'm going to stop sharing at this point.
Thank you, Jennifer. Lots of information there. Thank you for trying to condense it all down into the short amount of time that we have, but wonderful information, really informative. Actually, in my prior work, working as a director of public works in the town of Natick, it was my pleasure to work with Rich Ames, helping him get up the drone program there in Natick. And we certainly learned through trial and error some of those things as we went. A couple crashes, I recall, and church steeples in Natick Center, but no property damage, just some funny videos that kind of came about. And it was interesting to kind of deal with the insurance aspect of it as well. And I can tell you from my short time here in Sherburne, there's the municipal insurance carriers are aware of it. And it was actually a standard question they asked us last week as we were looking to renew our insurance here in Sherburne. So they're aware and have mechanisms in place to accommodate. So at least here in Massachusetts, it's on their radar. So thank you, Jennifer. And now I would like to turn it over to Richard Ames. Rich has developed and has at this point a pretty mature drone program. He has several drones and has a lot of experience, and he's going to share with us his experience and some of the uses and some of the examples of what he's been able to do with it. Thanks, Rich.
Okay, all right, I'm going to share my screen right away. Somewhere. There we go. All right, everything good? Thumbs up. Excellent. Okay. So thank you, Jen. There's some awesome stuff there, stuff that I was unaware of. So I have some questions for our insurance carrier when I get out of here. So thank you for that. And that information about the COA was good as well too. So the three things that I'm going to touch on, justification, basically how I talk my bosses into paying me to fly for a living. We'll talk about some expenses, and then we'll do a whole bunch of operational stuff that we'll fly through. So justification. So Natick GIS is located and funded out of the water department, which is the enterprise fund. And they have two of these in town, and the Massachusetts DEP requires us to inspect these things once a month. So instead of putting someone on a ladder to go up there and inspect the hatches and the vents, I said, hey, if we can get a drone, we can fly it and take pictures of all those things and inspect those drones every month. So it completely eliminates, a risk class of having people climb up on a ladder. So ladders are the number one cause of injury, falls are the number one cause of death. So we've removed that completely with the drone. And even if you want your guys like climbing ladders, there's a few months out of the years where they cannot get up on the roof at all. So any weather, we're up there flying the drones. And I have a collection of pictures like this of each water tower has 3 hatches and a vent. And I have, going back to 2016, I have monthly images of all of them. So if at any time there's an issue at Hayes, was your, water tower secure? We can say, yes, on this date at this time, there you can see the padlock head on there. Again, these are the old vents that were on there. And then that's the new vent. And again, we can land the drone right on the roof and take pictures up inside of it to see if there's any birds' nests or beer cans jammed up in there. So, and there's also new inspections that we can do that weren't available before. These are the air strippers at our treatment plant that kind of blow air through the water column. And again, these were screens that were inaccessible other than with a cherry picker. So now we can add these. And so I inspect these as well every month to make sure the screens are in good condition. Actually, when I took this picture, we got into trouble because this coarse mesh that is here actually wasn't sufficient to keep the bugs out. So they actually had to end up adding another piece of screen around the air stripper and stuff. So I made work for our guys with this one. All right, so expenses. So for our level, it's at the prosumer level. So back in 2016, when we started, we went with the DJI Phantom 4, which around that time was about $1,600, and then all in it was around $2,000 to get the program up and off the ground. So, the drone with the extra batteries, the controller, the backpack, and all that stuff was around around $2,000. Today, it's around 2,500 or so. You can go a lot cheaper than this. You can find a used drone if you want for under $500, and you can get an old Phantom 3 or an older Phantom 4, and it will do all the stuff that the new one does. It'll just be, harder to find batteries for it, and if anything goes wrong with it, it'll be harder to do repairs. After a couple of years, we upgraded our program to a unique H520, which is supposed to be a commercial drone. It really is not, but it had better cameras on it. We rapidly moved away from that to the DJI Matrice 210, which was a fantastic enterprise level drone. But you're talking some, real money now. The drone itself is around 15 grand, and with the cameras, we're, approaching $20,000. But it's a fantastic platform that we'll talk about more in a little bit. All right. I said Jennifer mentioned the insurance rider. Ours, I think, was around $1,500, I think. Like I said, and we went the rider route, and that's one of the questions I'm going to follow up with my insurance company to make sure we actually do have collision insurance. Most of the software, you can find it for free. The drone that you buy is going to come with some kind of flight planning software. Just make sure you talk to whoever's selling it to you that the drone does what you want it to do. Some of the drones are more for just taking pictures and videos versus actual mapping software. So just kind of be specific, or you'll end up kind of struggling to get the drone to do what you want. In our program, we do a lot of mapping, so we use the Esri suite, and it's a drone to map, which is essentially Pix 4D. They're essentially the same technology, and that's about $1,500 a year for that. And that enables you to basically take the drone images and make a map out of it and bring it right into your GIS. The exam, when I took it in 2016, was $150. I don't know if that's still accurate or not, but and then get created for funding. So like in our case, we're part of an enterprise fund, but if you have an enterprise fund that's in your town, maybe you can approach them and say, hey, we'll inspect your infrastructure if you can throw some money towards our program. And again, and compared to, factors and backhoes and stuff like that, this is, fairly short money. It's not like $500,000, to get a piece of equipment. It's, under 10 or under 2. All right, we're going to run through some quick operations here. So the drones, they're very easy to fly. I mean, you've got especially the DJI products. You got to work pretty hard to crash them, and be very negligent, because the drones, they have sensors on board for collisions, with like trees and flagpoles and stuff like that. They last about 25 minutes or so. Takes about an hour or so to charge the batteries. The drones have they do have a sense of self-preservation as far as a battery life and falling from the sky. So about 30% you get an alarm. At 10% it says forget you, and it'll come back and return to where it took off from. The big drone we have, the Matrice, can handle winds up to 25. It can do more than that, but I don't like flying in it because it messes up the it's just more headaches, and the imagery isn't that good because the drone's kind of wobbling all over the place. Most drones below a certain level are not rainproof. Like ours is approved to fly in a light rain, so whatever mil spec that is for light rain, but there's really nothing to see because the visibility is lousy. So unless you're flying for some kind of an emergency or something like that, but there's really no reason to fly in the rain. But it's very important, like Jen says, to practice and to train and to understand how your drone performs. So this was our first drone, the 2016 DJI. DJI, it is a Chinese company, so there's all of the issues there. We're not going to be doing any work for the Department of Defense. There are American companies, and you can buy an American drone. It'll be more money, and it'll be kind of a niche application. There are some new ones that are coming out, but the DJI stuff is it's very easy to use, and it's a very kind of jack of all trade solution. If there was an American drone out there, I would happily buy it, but it's been cost prohibitive and operationally prohibitive as well. Again, this is our 520 that we bought, and this was a nice thing that had multiple cameras we could put onto it. And then our third drone is the Empire approved M210 RTK12. Now it actually looks like that. Fantastic drone. All up weight with the batteries and the cameras. It's 13 pounds, so it will put a hole in something if it lands on you. So, but very stable. And there's also tethered drones that you can work with. And again, these sort of the power and the data go up through a cable, so they can stay up all day long in all weather conditions. And then fixed wings for larger areas. You see these in rural locations. There's more issues of visual line of sight that comes in for these areas, but they can fly very large, like real airplane type of missions for mapping. All right. Quick example of how we map with drones. So here's a section of town, and then someone built a daycare. So what we do with the drone is you take a series of images. Oh, stand by. And have an overlap, front lap, and on the side. And then with this information and some ground control points, the computer merges these, however, 25, 40 images together and creates a seamless mosaic that goes right into your GIS system. And it basically does that by comparing one image to another. So it does some edge matching. And then if you have ground control with a GPS unit, that puts it into real world coordinates. Again, so here's a construction area before, and then again, you can just do heads up digitizing here to get your as-built, your planimetrics up to date. It's very timely. Here's a building that's under construction when I flew it. This building was a year or two away from being finished, and we had the building footprint in our GIS, way ahead of time. Special events, the marathon comes through town, so we'll fly this in conjunction with the police department. Again, more just for operational awareness, more than any kind of law enforcement activity, because there's all kinds of issues when you're working with the police. And then lots of marketing shots. We fly and show off the town all the time. And any kind of special projects that are around town. So again, the town, your townsfolk are paying for these projects, and you can kind of show them off with the drone, saying, hey, we passed a bill to buy solar panels, and here are the solar panels. And to utility work, this is about 3 miles of a sewer force main that went in. And what we'll do is we'll fly as soon as the trench has been patched, and then we can update the GIS, because we may not see the as-built for this thing for a year or two, or maybe never. And then we can compare when we do get the as-built, because we know exactly where this trench is. And then there's a big middle school project. This was a $190 million school project. So they tore that one down. And then you can see the new one starting to come in. So we flew this on a regular basis and had regular updates on a project website as the project came along. And then here's the whole site. Again, this whole scene here is about 285 images that have all been stitched together. In the detail, we'll zoom into a section here. You can do update things like catch basins, the basketball court, you name it. We also have, okay, time-wise, this drone, again, with all its issues, it does have a thermal camera, so it detects heat. So we had a fire in 2019, and excuse me. So this was the biggest fire in Natick since 1874. It was an 8-alarm fire that burned downtown. So we brought the drone out, and the drone was on station for about 8 hours or so. And this is my favorite picture, because it shows the cooperation of all the different departments in town, and the police and the fire. And I was right next to the fire chief during the entire event. And just some shots of the fire, very smoky fire, had a membrane roof that was difficult to penetrate. And one more here. And this is the thermal camera. So again, this on the right, the big image here is, what the true color is. And then here's the thermal image, where you can see these hot spots in actual fire burning below the smoke. And then here it is during cleanup. And I don't want to oversell this. I'm not like I was telling the chief, hey, you need to spray water here. This was just giving the fire chief an overall impression and an overall view of the scene of when we start heading sending crews home, kind of a thing. It's more of an overview than any kind of specific tactical information. And then on a more happier note, well, not happy, but there was a fire this summer at Broadmoor, a brush fire, and in conjunction with it, we've agreed to fly the site. So we've flown it monthly. Here's the fire. right? And then basically capturing it as it basically regrows. And there we go. And that's an hour presentation in 12 minutes.
Thank you, Rich. It's amazing how, once you have sort of the equipment in place, how many uses you can find for it. I know from working with you, there would be requests would come in on a regular basis from, the police department or the fire department on, hey, we know you have this capability. Can you help us out? We've got a lost child in the woods, or, just recently is another way to purchase equipment as well, as if it's gifted as part of a partnership with, I know you're working with a watershed group, doing some imaging, and then as part of that partnership, they're buying you equipment that you'll keep as kind of in lieu of payment for your assistance. So it's amazing, all the uses that come up. So Robert, are you with us? So plan here was to have Robert show.
Robert, you need to unmute yourself.
A quick video of a flight he's just taken. So Robert's program is in a much earlier stage than Richard's. So
I'm
this
okay
kind
now?
of a contrast in
Yes,
sort of a developing drone program, which Robert can discuss, and where he's at with his program, and the challenges he's facing. But here's a quick video of a flight he just did for an inspection. And with that, I'll turn it over to Robert. We'll get through this in just a handful of minutes, and then hopefully we'll open it up to some questions and discussions. Go ahead, Robert.
Well, thank you, Jeremy. I've worked with Jennifer, a wealth of information that she can give you, a great resource. And Richard, he proved the usefulness of what a drone can actually do. This video actually doesn't do it justice. My video is considerably better than this. I think when I downloaded it, I had to send it via another route. So there's a little pixels, but this is an inspection of an inland wetland waterway. It's in a floodplain. We're viewing it for blockages where we'd have to clean it out and do some possible dredging. This tool is a tool of our future. It really is. It's something that is going to be a great public works device. It has an infinite amount of uses depending on the payload that you use, whether it's infrared. And again, this video doesn't do it justice. My video is considerably better. I think it was the size of the video, but you can see to the left in the bottom over there, there's a blockage in the channel, trees that are down. Unfortunately, with this video, you can't see how clear it was, but the access to the channel was difficult. So being able to use a drone it's a remarkable device. Jeremy had sent us some questions, and I'd like to go over those questions. Public works funding, not really available. That's what or grant money. That's what we're trying to search for. Most of it is dedicated towards the emergency services. We don't, currently, we're the only ones that in public works, we work with no other agency. We're the construction services division. We're developing the program itself. We don't have any other Part 107 registered licensed pilots yet, but we are working on that. The drone that we used for this is a Mavic Air 2. We spent less than $3,000 so far developing the program. That includes the cost of the drone and some necessary accessories. Training, mostly we just go out and practice. I have another individual I work with. He's not certified yet. He doesn't have a Part 107, but under my supervision, he's allowed to take the controls of the device. as long as I have immediate access to it. It's a little more difficult for us here in Danbury. We have a municipal airport, so I work in Class D airspace. So I have to maintain contact with air traffic control, which I call 15 minutes before the flight and 15 minutes after the flight. And they work with well with us. It has been a good experience. I can't tell you what a marvelous device this is, and depending on the payloads, we hope that we could prove its airworthiness and its worth, where we can get funding both internally and through grant opportunities. It is part of our future. That's all that I could say. And again, Richard, he identified the many uses of that.
Thank you, Robert.
You're welcome.
Great examples there. And you can see how, Robert is, in the beginning stages. And, I'd love to, what do you see as your major challenges going forward, Robert, in setting up your program?
Well, I think budgetary, I think the monies is what the difficult part is, acquiring the monies for that, funding the program. You get into infrared, ground penetrating radar. Just think about that, using a drone with ground penetrating radar to identify public utilities.
Yeah,
going down the right of way. But these are pretty costly devices.
Mm.
So I think we're treading slowly. What we can't make a mistake. I think if you make a mistake at the early stages, you're gonna hurt yourself. That's why we've taken the time to make sure that, first of all, part one was, as Jennifer identified, I attempted to do a certificate of authorization through the FAA, made that application. I was denied. So part 107 is absolutely mandatory for public works use. So we're going through the steps. Started small. We got I have a pretty good device to start with, and we're not spending too much money, but again, I have to prove what it can do.
Sure. Rich, any insights you might be able to offer to folks on the call, and Robert as well, as he starts to grow and justify his program? And I'd also like to open it up to everybody here to ask questions of the panelists. Now's the time. If you have any questions or comments or observations, please add it to the chat or chime in. Rich, any thoughts? Oh, I think your mic might not. So I think Rich has an audio issue. And in the meantime, we've got a question in the chat. Does anyone have experience using the drone and photogrammetry to create survey mapping and project planning, or for project planning, like creating existing conditions maps for the use of proposed projects?
Unfortunately not, but that certainly is something that we want to get into.
Yep. I know Natick has had experience in that regard, using the drone to actually supplement and update aerial photography. The photography is so good, and they locate the drones themselves are GIS located so that you can update little snapshots of aerial photography and have them sort of snap into your town's overall aerial photography. And they also have the ability, some cameras, drones have the ability to take multiple pictures, which also help you create actual topography, ground contours, that then can be used for design applications. Once you have those contours in place, you can look at cuts and fills of properties and where potential development might go. Rich, is your audio up? No. Okay. Any other questions from folks?
How about now? Am I back now?
It is. You're in.
Perfect.
That's weird. My mic just died. But anyways, yeah. So that program that we use, Drone to Map, is basically, it's photogrammetry software, and we use that. And like I said, we're not going to, we used to have the town flown like every 5 years, you know, when we pay whatever, $30,000 or even $10,000 go working in partnership with other towns. And I don't think we're going to do that anymore, because Massachusetts flies the state every 2 years at 6-inch resolution, and that's good enough for townwide coverage. And if for us, for special project, I can fly with the drone and get 2-centimeter coverage. So it's more than enough detail for these kind of projects. So I use the drone for all house updates now. And so instead of GPS in the corners, I'll fly it with the drone, and I can bang out 50, 60 houses in a flying season in the spring. And even now, this time of year, which would be, you wouldn't normally be flying fixed wing this time of year because of the shadows. With the drone, let her fly.
Super. We have another question here in the chat. Since storage and software can be expensive for smaller municipalities, has any state considered a central data site municipalities could access for buying software licenses that municipalities could utilize on demand? Anybody aware of any such programs? Unfortunately not. I know, you know, some municipalities are part of purchasing consortiums that you know, can help purchase software. I myself am not aware of any particular program that allows you to share the use of a program. But there are statewide contracts in Massachusetts that might help with kind of group purchasing power to reduce those costs. I have a general question for the panelists. How involved is it to get a license to fly, you know, and what level of license is sort of a good entry point, or, you know, what goes into that? Should somebody, you know, they don't have a drone, they don't have a pilot yet, what would be sort of their first step?
Well, I think I could start there since I went through the entire process. It's relatively inexpensive to get a Part 107 license, and that's the only, you have to have it. If you're going to operate commercially, the FAA demands that you have a Part 107 license. The license cost, I spent about 60 hours total in study. I had a good tutor. We spent a little bit of money on a tutor, but my license was less than $800. But if you're intelligent enough, you know what? You could just study out of the books. They even have online courses that you could do, and you just have to go in and pass the test.
Yeah, Jennifer, any insights as far as, you know, what sort of first steps municipalities or folks might take to start up a program?
Sure. Yeah. So that's exactly correct, that you need to get your Part 107 license, and you can use various ways of tutoring. So you can do some online courses. I know some groups have done like online, and then the people all sort of sit around and talk about it. You can have somebody come and do it with you in person. So there's different ways of doing that. But you've got to remember too, that Part 107 test is just a knowledge test. Beyond that Part 107 test, you need to understand how to actually fly the drone. So you're going to want probably somebody to come and provide actual flight training for your pilots. So those are you know, the components. And then when you have your Part 107 license, every 2 years you've got to renew it, and that's an easy process. But you do need to keep current with it.
Right. Rich, I know, you know, you came into the drone program having, you know, one of your passions is flying model airplanes. So you came in with that experience flying, but you did mention in your talk that they're relatively easy to fly and probably varies by model, but there's some forgiveness in flying them.
Yeah, so quickly, the best place to start is go to FAA.gov, UAS. That is, they have a great piece of information there, and practice exams, and you really can. That's a great place to start for information. As far as flying the drones, and again, like Jennifer says, there's nothing on the test about how to fly drones. It's all about risk management and airspace knowledge, and being able to read a weather report, and understanding the lingo and understanding the risk of flying in the national airspace. That's what the FAA cares about. They don't want you flying into stuff. Yeah, and the drone itself, the ones that we fly, they have a GPS and an IMU in them. So when you let go of the controls, the drone just stays there and hovers in space, as long as you're not in some crazy sport mode or something like that. And then when the battery goes down, it'll come back and land. But it's when you start operating it, that's when you need to understand what the sensors are involved. So, and you can turn the sensors on and off, and you need to know there's maybe not sensors in the back of the drone, so you can actually back into things like I did. So it's it's important to understand the limitations. And there's actually a little training test course you can set up where you set various buckets up, and you can take pictures and stuff like that and learn how to control the drones when you're doing inspections and stuff. So,
If I could just chime in on that point.
Yeah.
That's the NIST course, and our website has lots of information on the NIST course. It's got videos on how it works and how you can set it up yourself. You can buy it already made, or I know East Hartford and Connecticut went ahead and made their own. So if you just take a look at the ctmuts.org, we have a lot of resources under training, and there's a lot under about the NIST classes. And
yeah,
then
we did that as well. We I bet $50 on buckets and lumber, and we created our own course. So
That's great. Some of those resources, links to those resources have been put in the chat. Some free training offered by colleagues in Ohio, the link to the FAA. We do have another question here. How often do you find you need to fly over 400 feet? And that might be some sort of regulatory limit or type of drone you might buy. And the question goes on, I noticed that the FAA has reduced requirements as long as you stay under that elevation. And any ideas there, any insights on, what you the most often would fly in your applications? Are you below or over 400 feet?
The video I showed, I was at 100 feet, and I operate in probably the most control. I operate in Class D airspace. So that's from ground level to 2,400 feet. We have applications, or there's apps where I have drone up, where it shows you a map of what altitudes that you can fly to, limits you could fly to. Part 107 also identifies that you can go up to a certain altitude. If you're inspecting a structure, you can go up to 400 feet above that structure. But again, that's all covered in both your airspace, and most municipalities are going to operate in Class G or Gulf airspace, which doesn't require FAA approval. You could just go out and fly. But that you need to be aware of what's going on. That doesn't relinquish any. You have to be just as attentive to air traffic as if you were flying in a regulated airspace.
Thank you, Robert. Unfortunately, our hour has rapidly come to an end. Really appreciate everybody for joining us this morning. Thank you to our great panelists. Thank you for the T2 Center for hosting and all of the background coordination that they do. Would the panelists like to give a quick wrap up or one more insight before we end for the day?
I'm at anyone's service. If they have questions about it, they can reach us through email. Office T2 can provide that. Again, I think I work in the most difficult environment. It's a program that you should really, really contemplate and consider. It is a tool of the future.
Thanks. Rich?
Yeah, just follow the rules. Honestly, that's the key. You don't take any shortcuts, because it'll end up biting you really hard. And again, I'm also available. I consider myself a drone evangelist. So fire away with questions.
Thank you. Jennifer?
Yeah, what I just like to say, I want to make one quick comment on the tethered drones. There are requirements for that, and people just seem to think you can just throw them up and they're good. So if you're considering a tethered drone, you really need to understand the requirements for it. And that just wraps up into my last comment, which is it's really important that you speak with if you have a lawyer who is familiar with FAA law, because this is it's complicated law. It changes like on a monthly basis. So it's very important, if you have questions, to really talk to somebody who understands this law. So I think that's what I would like to leave people with.
Thank you. Wonderful. And I'd like to turn it back to Rich Benevento for closing.
Thank you, Jeremy, and thank you, panel. This was awesome. I'm not a real drone person, but I was intrigued by all this, and I think I'm going to go get one. Rich, I'm going to call you up. But on behalf of the New England chapter and all the folks at APWA, I just want to thank everybody for tuning in this morning. Be sure to keep an eye out for when we bring our sessions back online in 23 in March. A really great program here, the new CLD driver training regulations that you're going to want to know about. And then we have facilities and grounds in April, and then another great topic in May, electrification of fleet and equipment. So those are going to be some great programs. We hope you'll tune in for those. And with that, I want all of our Public Works colleagues to be safe. Some part of our New England region will be getting dumped pretty hard tomorrow, just in time for Santa to show up. Others may be getting rain, but it looks like it's going to be a mixed bag for everybody. So happy holidays to everyone, and thanks again for joining us today, and hope to see you in March.